Hello everyone, how are you today? It's Sharon here, and you're right here on my page, I Restore Stuff. And I'm going to do a little bit of experimenting today using Artisan paints, and so especially their chalk paints, so that's what I'll do today. Artisan brand is an Australian brand, so if you are here in Australia, you can order this directly from me at irestorestuff.com. But if you are overseas today, you can also just message me if you are interested in getting any Artisan products, although shipping could be a little expensive to the USA. So thank you so much for joining me. For those of you who jump on, let me know where you're watching from. If you're watching the replay, that's great, because I'll probably be editing this up as a video so that I can put it up on my YouTube channel. So if you do follow my YouTube channel there, subscribe there. That's also a great idea. So I'll get started. What I want to do is just paint up a few little projects. I found this at an op shop here in Australia. It's just a metal can and it says decoration only, so you're not going to probably use it as a vase because sometimes these things may leak, you never know. It was just a couple of dollars. I like finding things like this that I can just paint up, create something a little bit different from them. Now it does have a design here on the front. I could sort of paint that with chalk paint and then distress it so that that peeks through. You could do something like that. Hello, how are you today? Who's that? Diane, how are you? So glad you could join me. And I'm thinking of using, so we've got creme brulee in Artisan natural chalk finish. So if you've heard of chalk paints, they've been around for a long time. This is an Aussie brand of chalk finish or chalk paint called Artisan. And Artisan does have both chalk paint and a mineral paint. So if you would love to know the difference, I do have a great blog post that tells you the difference between those three main sort of types of actual furniture paint that you would use for your furniture painting, and that would be mineral paint, chalk paints, and milk paint. So milk paint comes in a powdered form, you mix it with water, and you can paint your furniture that way. So if you've never watched one of my tutorials or read my blog before, my blog is called I Restore Stuff. You can follow me at I Restore Stuff on all of my social media platforms. So if you're joining me for the first time, I'm just doing some chalk paint finishes today. The other thing I wanted to try was just using a plain pine wood finish surface. I wanted to create some kind of a wash using mocha, the color. This is Artisan chalk paint. So if you've got chalk paints, you might sort of find you could use these same similar ideas using a chalk paint in your area. So let me point that down to my surface here so we can get started. Let's see. And I will just refresh my page here so I can see comments on the live, because sometimes I don't see them all the time. I was meant to go live on Essential Stencil today, but my stencils didn't arrive in time, so I've switched places with Melissa, who did my live today. Hello, now I can see comments. Kay's here, Kim's here, Ruth's here from New Jersey. How exciting. Thank you guys so much, and let me know any questions you've got about using chalk paints, and I will do my best to answer those as we go. So it's evening there if you're in the USA. It's Australia here. It's almost midday. It's 11:30. 11:30. Okay, so I've got this can that I picked up from a thrift store. I'm using creme brulee, which is a kind of a taupe color, almost. Find it's a little bit similar to, you know, some of the fusion mineral paint taupe colors like cathedral taupe in the fusion paint colors that I also use. And so I'm just going to put a little bit into a container. I should have brought another container over, so we'll have to see how we go with this, because I wanted to do something with the wash in a container as well. I'll probably use that. Okay, so I'm using Salt Impasto, and I have got quite a bit in there. It's probably a tablespoon, which is very similar to what we've got here. So we've got Salt Impasto. So this creates that salt wash look on your piece of furniture, or on your, in this case, on your watering can. I don't know, we call it a vase. It's a decorative kind of a thing, isn't it? Hi Kay, how are you? Excited to watch me anyway. Now, if you do get the Salt Impasto from Artisan, you can get that from my website here in Australia if you are interested in that, irestorestuff.com. It's called Salt Impasto, and it does come with a little scoop, but you may have to dig for it because sometimes it may just get a little lost in the powder. So our instructions given that you use 1 part impasto to 2 parts paint. And so if I've probably got about, this scoop is approximately, I'd say it's a tablespoon. I've probably got 2 in there. So if I add a good tablespoon of the salt impasto to that, did I bring something to stir it with? I brought a teaspoon. That'll do. That'll work. How are you? Hi, Kate. Yes, and Ruth's here. It's 9:30 p.m. there. Lynn's here from Illinois. Thank you so much for watching. All right, so I'm just adding that in here. Now you just want to mix this until it's just stirred through. You know, I don't know if you see, in Australia we make scones. You'd probably call them biscuits in the USA. But you mix the dough until it's just mixed through. Well, that's the operation we're doing here today, is just mixing this until it's only just stirred in. It sort of should have a cottage cheese mixture. So if you can see that, it sort of looks a little cottage cheesy. I feel like it's a little dry, so I may have to just add a bit more of this paint. Yeah, maybe it was a little too, the ratios I got a bit wrong. And sometimes you might just have to experiment with that. Now, we don't want a great big lump, but we do want it to be a slightly bit runny. Oop. And so the idea is to get a bit of a cottage cheese mixture. But you can make the texture however you like. Now this, I want to use, you could use a brush. I'd normally prefer to use a brush that I don't particularly care to destroy. I mean, I don't particularly mind if I destroy it. So I might just use this one, an artist brush. And it is still looking a little bit chunky. This is called Salt Impasto. So similar to watching similar to using salt wash. Evelyn's here from Texas. Great to see you, Evelyn. Thank you so much for watching. So if you are in Australia, I'm in Brisbane, Queensland. So if you are in Brisbane, you can get this from my shop booth at Camp Hill Antique Centre. Okay, I'm using a great big lump of it here. You can see that there, but as you spread it around, we're creating sort of a textured finish here. So you'll spread it around, you'll see a little bit of the paint mixing with it. You'll see that impasto kind of leveling out as you squish it down. I'll bring that a bit closer. Squish it down. We don't want too many huge lumps up there. So as we go, we're sort of evening out the finish of it. I'm going to make a textured finish. I've seen some fun videos of people doing this similar thing with some of these products, and you can create so many different, it's almost like a stoneware kind of, you know, natural finished clay look that you can get. So you can see that texture that's happening in there. And you can stipple it a little bit if you wanted to, but it will sort of set really hard, and you could be left with a really stiff brush. So let me just move this down so we can see it a bit better. This is going a long way. As you can see, I've just used that one lump and spread it right around. And you could do all sorts of kind of, you know, stippling. See, that's got this sort of a pattern on the front too. That's a floral, whoop, grab that big lump, a floral pattern on the front. So I'll see how that turns out. You know, this is all just experimentation. I'm glad you're along here for the watch or for the ride. Hi, Bonnie. How are you? And from doing this today, I'll create a video for my YouTube channel as well, and we'll shrink it down, shorten it up a bit, and show you the basic details of using this salt impasto to create a fun wash. So you can see there's lots of texture going on here, and then when we finish it, we want to put on some sort of a glaze. So realistically, this probably would take you a little bit to dry. So I could come back with that part 2 a while after it dries. I do have a hairdryer here though that may help the process. But the other thing I wanted to do today was create a wash on I've got a pine board over here. I want to do that, experiment with some colours here today, because I've seen some nice popular washes using other paints and paint colours, and I think that we could create the same thing using Artisan's chalk paint. Natural chalk finish, as we call it. So you can see that spackly look there, creating sort of a stone look. This is the colour Creme Brulee. And then with all that texture that's going on there, Domenica, you're asking if I'll still be live Friday. Yes, well, I hope so, because I'm still waiting for my stencils to arrive, and they haven't arrived yet. I can't really speed up that postal process, so I'm waiting for those to arrive, and hopefully I get to be live on Friday on the Essential Stencil page. That's what Domenica's asking about. I go live over there as one of their ambassadors to show you all sorts of crafts you can do with their stencil products. Okay, so there's a good look at how that's turning out. And as you can see, there's really no wrong way to do this. You can see that spackly texture there. You can see that underneath. Now this is starting to dry over this side. I've just got a little bit left to go over here. And my spackle, I call it, my Salt Impasto has it looks really chunky to put it on, but as you sort of start to spread it out using this brush, you could use a larger brush if you wanted to do a bit more, but I find that this is just going slow is helping me to spread out the lumps and create some nice texture going on here. So we are live here on my Facebook page. So this isn't one of those sped up video processes, but you're here watching. So ask me anything. Ask me any questions if you've got questions about painting furniture or decor. I'm happy to answer those for you. I've got lots of great blog posts on my irestorestuff.com website if you have not visited there yet. So this handle is going to be a little tricky for me to do the inside of it, but we'll get there. So you could just paint it like that directly on, but then as you do that stippling, it gives you the texture. So we'll get the sides. Oh, thank you, Ruth. It's a lot of fun. As I know that oftentimes when we're live here, a lot of people are in their own craft rooms doing their own crafts and just turning on the Facebook Lives and watching as we create, and then we can create together, can't we? So let me know if you're creating something right now as you watch this video. I'd love to know. Just getting in those bits in there, and yep, I can see this is creating, oops, I'm trying to get this on the video camera. So if you're just joining us, we are using Artisan's Salt Impasto mixed with Creme Brulee, a colour in their chalk paint range. Natural chalk finishes is what we're using today. I haven't done this top bit here because I'm still using that as a handle to grab, and so I'm going to try and get right down in here, in the back of this handle. Yes. I thought that would be trickier than what it actually is. I don't know if you've seen these cans just around. I found this one at a thrift store, an op shop, we call them here in Australia. I don't know if you can see that in there. And just stippling as we go, just covering all the surfaces. So chalk paint pretty much sticks to anything. It's really, oops, sorry, you can't see. There I am trying to do this as close as I can to the camera, which is right across the other side of the table from me. And it's kind of a lumpy texture, but it really gives a nice, lovely texture. Let's see if I can do that a little better on this side. I've got my spoon here. I've just used a teaspoon to kind of mix it with. It is hardening up, so you kind of need to probably work fast in one sense. Let me sit. Oh. Okay, so Dominica, you're working on crosses. That's beautiful. Fran says, what is the texture paint you're using? You came in late. So the texture is called Salt Impasto. This is the Australian brand of products. It's similar to a salt wash, and I'm using creme brulee, which is Artisan's chalk paint. So it's a chalk finish that we stock here in Australia, and I've got that on my website, irestorestuff.com. Oh. Okay. It's getting a little bit low there, so let me just lift that slightly so I can get the front of it. And you saw probably, I had in my dish, I think I mixed about, so it's 1 scoop of the Salt Impasto, and then I mixed about 2 scoops of that, the chalk paint finish. Now, it's up to you whether you want to sort of paint the top insides of this. I think I'll leave it for now. And so I've got something to grab onto. And you'll get these little lumpy bits, and then you just smooth them all out. It creates this fun texture. I can see some of that floral, flourishes that was on the front of it. Ruth, your husband's creating a craft room as we speak. Oh, that is amazing. Okay, Ruth's asked, what is the best way to avoid brush marks on furniture when you use chalk paint? I'm about to refinish a china cabinet. So yes, so there is a difference between chalk paint and mineral paint. So chalk paint is a porous finish and often is a bit thicker than a mineral paint, a furniture paint. So if you're using actual chalk paint, it can be that because it's a bit thicker, it's a little bit trickier to avoid the brush strokes. In fact, a lot of people use chalk paint, especially to get that old world texture, with the crisscrossy brush strokes, so that you can then add a wax and have those as a feature on your piece. But if you're trying to make it a nice, smooth, furniture painted finish, then to avoid brush strokes, I would get a mister. Now, I do stock a few misting bottles on my website. If you're in Australia, I can ship those to you. They're different than a spray bottle. It's a mist, so it just comes a nice fine mist, and you can either spray the mist of water, so it's just filled with water, onto your brush or onto the piece that you're working with, and you'll find that the brush strokes, it will really smooth out those for you. So I would try that. The other thing is just watch that you're not over painting. So if you, well, look, I finished. I'll show you that a little bit closer so you can sort of see all those stipply textured bits. So as that dries, we will get a gorgeous finish on that. Yeah, so as you're going, just make sure that you're not over brushing your piece. So that means that once it's, once you've laid it down in a nice smooth stroke, if you're painting furniture, make sure that you leave it. Once it starts to dry, it gets tacky, and then as you'll drag your brush, and it will cause brush strokes rather than avoid them. So that's my top tips for that. And if you go to my website, irestorestuff.com, and you click on the tab at the top or in the menu that says learning to paint, and then you can start there. And I do actually have some video to show you how that works, how you can do that the best. I'm trying to figure out how to now put this aside so I can let that dry a bit, and I'll work on my wash that I wanted to do over here. So now I need to add water to this to create, look, I've got so much left over. Look how much I've still got left over. It's quite lumpy now, forming a bit of a lump, but like it's almost clay-like, but that will really stick well to your piece. So to get that out of my jar. I'm going to have to fill that with water and soak it a little bit. For my teaspoon, pop that in a water dish just there, and the paintbrush, I'll have to soak that also, so get that in there. All right, let me see if I've missed anything else. The texture looks amazing, Fran says. Thank you, Fran. I'm really happy with how that's turning out. I do have a hairdryer here I can dry it with in a minute. Now, just while I move my paint, make sure that paint's dry down there. I do have a fun design on the back that I used, that I created using essential stencils on the back of there. That's a fun pattern. Okay, so this, I want to create a bit of a wood wash look on here, and I'm going to try this color, which is called Mocha, and this is another Artisan chalk paint finish. And what we need to do is just really shake our bottles well, and I'm just looking for another container to mix this wash in because I didn't bring one over. Excuse me just a second, let me see if I can reach that. Oop, hang on. Talk amongst yourselves. If you've got any questions, let me know. And I'm just going to grab another one of these dishes, because what we want to do to create a wash is we need to have equal parts paint to equal parts water. Well, that's how I do it. You can use as much or as little as you want. I'm thinking of using this charcoal black glaze over the top of it when I'm finished also. So let's have a look. This is similar to maybe Fusion's colour Algonquin, or one of those colours. So to create a fun wash like that is something that people are loving to do on their wood surfaces at the moment. So I wanted to have a little experiment on that. So this is raw wood. Some people might do it on darker wood. And I'm just going to pop a little bit in here. And honestly, that's way too much, because I'm just doing this small surface. That, a little amount that I dribbled in there, is probably a teaspoon's worth of paint. That would probably be enough when we create the wash to do a whole top of a table, because honestly it goes so far. All right, I didn't bring any water to the table. I'm literally using my drinking water glass, and I'm going to estimate around about half and half. So 1 part to 1 part, okay? So we're making a wash. I'm using one of our Artisan oval brushes. These are beautiful. They've got tapered bristles, gives you nice smooth brush strokes. Okay, so this is the colour Mocha, and it does look like a mocha, doesn't it? It looks like a chocolate coffee right there. So all I'm doing is mixing that with my brush, and you can see that it's quite runny. So it's just got a nice stream of liquid flowing out from that. So to do this wash, you know, that's way too much. I could have just done that easily with half of that. But you know what? This could be a great wash to go over the top of this. In fact, instead of doing the glaze idea, I might even do that. See, that's why I brought you guys along with me. So we can get these great ideas together. Okay, so I'm just going to now use this brush, and we go along. And it is a wash, so with a wash you will see the grain of wood underneath. Okay, so that's the idea of this wash, so that we can see that grain of the wood underneath. It's not a full, we're not expecting full paint coverage, because we're trying to create, it's almost like a stain. And so that's equal parts Mocha, Artisan chalk finish, and water. And as that dries, you'll know the other difference between chalk paint and mineral paint is that, I'm going to put it on the edges as well, that chalk paint is a porous finish, like I said earlier, and it does have quite a chalky looking finish, which is probably where it gets its name. So I don't want that to come around the front. I've got a wet cloth here that I can wipe that off, because I've got some a painted finish. This is going to create a nice background for whatever I decide to stencil on here another day. So I'm just going to paint the sides here, but this is how we create a wash. It's drying quite quickly, and you'll find that chalk paint and mineral paint, most furniture paints are created to dry fairly quickly. You could, if you thought to yourself, well, this is great, but it's a little bit darker than what I'd like, then all you have to do is water that down a little bit more, and you've got yourself a bit of a lighter finish, or just use a lighter colour paint. But I usually tell people, if you're trying to create a stain and you haven't used it before, practice on an offcut or a scrap piece of wood first, and then I'm going to have to turn this around. You see my beautiful design on the front as I do this. And then you can find out exactly what you'd like for your stain. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. And if you're watching the replay, we are just experimenting with Australian brand of paints called Artisan, which I stock them here in Brisbane and online. I ship Australia wide. And that is creating a lovely wash. I like it. Now, if I want to use this brush again later, I often will put my brushes in a plastic bag to save them drying out. So I've got that wash there. I may wash another couple of these to create that. So as it dries, you can see some lighter areas showing up down the bottom edge there. But I'll get my hairdryer out and just give that a good hit. And you'll be able to see that drying super fast. And that's a gorgeous wash. It's like a taupe, kind of dark taupe colour. So, and then with chalk paints, I was talking about that they have a porous chalky finish. You always need to use a sealer to seal your chalk paints once you've finished. Because otherwise it won't be sealed, and it will collect dirt and dust and fingerprints. And if you have, say, for example, any oil on the surface, it's not resisting that, and so it will go through there. There might be just a little bit still wet there. It could just be the shade of the wood grain. So I love that look. Now remember that this is a chalky finish, and when we put the seal on, it will darken to a little bit darker when, in that way that it got wet just earlier. So, I like that. I like that finish. It's a really beautiful stain. So I was going to show you how to seal that, but I could even put on that a charcoal glaze, which I think I'll do that. A charcoal black glaze. I can show you how to do a glaze. And this one here, you can see that the chalk paint, oops, I'm even holding the handle, so it is getting quite dry. You can see little patchiness there, and that is that just drying. Now, if I get the hairdryer and hit that with the hairdryer, I might even find, if you do hit it fairly soon after you've painted it, sometimes chalk paint with that direct heat can get crackly, so you get that extra texture of crackles. So I don't see that happening just now, but I've got all of that nice yummy texture in there that I can create either a glaze over, and then the glaze will sit into the crevices of that texture, or I could put a wash over it and the same thing that we've created. You could even add waxes to this finish. You see that texture in there. It gives it sort of like that stony look. Yeah, Dominica, I love that wood grain too. I really like it. I really like it. All right, to create a glaze, now we've got a charcoal black glaze here. You could seal that completely and it would just give it a nice, it sort of would look a little bit closer to how it looked when that chalk paint was wet. Now I don't have with me, I'll shake up the glaze. This is charcoal black and it's just a small size. It actually comes in a larger size. This is Artisan again, the black glaze. And I will just use my damp cloth that I have here. Now usually you wouldn't use a damp one, you could just use a dry one, but it will still work. And I'm going to put the glaze on here and show you what a glaze finish might look like. So the glaze kind of, instead of a sealer, it'll kind of streak across the finish, and you can give sort of a it sort of seals it, sort of creates a bit of a glazed finish over the top of a paint surface, for example. It would stand out a bit more as a glaze, but you can see how that kind of seals it. It gives it a little bit, it's a charcoal color on that, so it is a little bit darker than what you would do if you just had a seal. I'll show you with just my wet cloth. So here's a way of testing. If you want to see what your chalk paint's going to look like, or even your wood surface. Sometimes wood surfaces, when you sand them, they're quite porous. But if you want to know what that's going to look like with a clear sealer on it, just get a bit of a wet cloth. And as I put my wet cloth on there, that's the color that it would be with a clear sealer. And this is with the charcoal black glaze. So you can see there's a little bit of a difference there. So I'll just finish that with my glaze. Just another little bit more, and see how I really only need the tiniest bit. And we just go with the wood grain. So because this wood grain, the grain of the wood is going up and down like that, I can pop that on there. And that'll give us a lovely black glaze finish. I'll do that on the sides as well. Now you can use a brush to put your glaze on. I often prefer to use a dry cloth, sort of like a chucks like I'm using now, just because I feel like I've got a little bit more control, and you get thinner coats on there. So with the brushing on, it tends to go on a bit thicker, whereas the glaze goes on a bit thinner and gives you a nice glazed look. Thank you, Janice. Leanne's asking, what sealer do you like to use and which one do you like for food grade sealer? Good question. So for a sealer, I love to use the flat matte sealers. Now in Australia here, I've got both the Artisan has a flat matte sealer and Fusion Mineral Paint. So I do have a Fusion Mineral Paint affiliate link if you want me, if you're in the USA and Canada and you are wanting to use that. I have a code or a link that I can give you. Just ask me for that in the comments and I can send that to you. If you're in the USA and Canada, you can get it that way. And they have a flat matte sealer as well. So I've got, if you're in Australia, you can order that online from ivorystorestuff.com. If you're in the USA and Canada, there's Fusion's flat matte sealer, which you can order through my affiliate link. If you would like that, let me know. But as for a food grade sealer, about the only food grade sealer I know of is the Fusion has a pure beeswax finish, and it's all natural, and so then you could put that and make sure it hardens, cure it, give it 21 days curing time, and then you could use that for your serving boards and things like that. I really am happy with that beautiful glazed finish. A lovely wash. Now let's just have an experiment with this, and I'm not going to do the entire thing, but I thought I'd have a go at brushing on some of this charcoal black glaze, or I did think of doing a bit of a wash. Hey, I could do a little bit of experimenting with both, but then it would look uneven, wouldn't it? So, black glaze or the wash. What should I try on top of this? There's that mocha colour. That would look kind of cool. Or the glaze. Now, I'd probably have to brush it on. I could do a bit of both. So I'll show you what you can do with a dry brush technique. So dry brushing is when, and I think I'll do the dry brushing, I'll have to do that, probably do that after the glaze. Okay, so what I want to do with the glaze, the charcoal glaze, is add this first, and I'll just do one side of this. I'll just do this here. So with the glaze, oh Margaret, your hands are so graceful when you work. Oh, you're beautiful. Leanne, I'll get that link for you in just a minute. As soon as I finish the live, I'll tag you in a reply and grab that for you. So I've run out of these here, so I'm just going to have to dip my brush into the glaze. This is not the way you do it, but this will work for now. Okay, so I've just got to stand so I can lean over and show you this as I go. So you can see all the stippling is going to create a lovely effect where I can brush the glaze on and it will sit within or inside all of those crevices. This is the charcoal black Artisan glaze. And then if I get my damp cloth, or just, yeah, it usually would be a damp cloth, just wipe over the surface, the glaze will sit inside down in the crevices, and it may or may not, it's making a liar out of me. Oh yeah, you can see that it's now being removed from some of those high points on top. So that's where we could then dry brush over the top of that in another colour. So it gives you that kind of a gives you depth, I think that's what I want to say. It gives you some depth into the whole piece. So again, just getting this all over. I need a little bit more on my brush. This is the glaze. And you're getting it down into those little crevices of all of the stippling that we did, all of that texture. And then you wipe off the surface as you go. So I need to get it down into here. Let's see some bits I missed. And then wipe it off the top. You can see how that goes. I'll just do a little bit more. Maybe up the top here. This is the glaze. And then after that, I'm just going to grab that wash and do a dry brush on top. Maybe even, oops, sorry, did this again. Got to watch where my camera's pointed so I can get it in front of you. Okay, so there's the difference. We've got that creme brulee, then I've added a bit of glaze over the top. You can see where it all sort of sits in the texture of it. Then I'll use some of this mocha wash, and I've got to stir up that. The chalk paint will probably separate if you've mixed it in to create a wash. It'll sit down the bottom, so we want to stir that in. And I'm going to dry off the brush as much as I can. This is how you do a dry brush method. And just you're hitting those high points. So the glaze has gone into the cracks and crevices, and the wash, I'm going to offload my brush, sort of like when I'm stenciling. I'm going to offload the brush onto some paper as much as I can. See, there's still a lot of that wash on there. And I just want to hit those high points, trying to get rid of the paint off the brush. Just going to hit these high points on here. And you're getting just a little bit more of, I'll just do part of it. There we go. Just hitting up those points there, and you're getting a little bit more of it's a multicolored look. Just had to look at that so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so you can see we've got, I'll show you the different parts. So we've done that creme brulee mixed with the Salt Impasto on here to get a lovely textured finish. You may just like to leave it at that stage, but we're experimenting today, folks. Then I added the black charcoal glaze, and you can see that that's kind of sitting within all the crevices of the texture. And then I've just added a bit of a mocha wash on top of that side. I'm not sure if you can see that in the light there. Probably should have added some light here to my live. Let's see if I turn the lights actually on, that might help. There we go. So you can kind of see a difference between this wash area here and this glazed bit here. So the wash is probably a little bit streaky for my liking. I think that what I could have done is, it's still got so much water in it, so I probably should have just got a little bit of the mocha actual chalk paint, full strength, not a watered down version, and then dry brushed that on, because I think that would have turned out a little bit better than that. So, but that's why we experiment, isn't it? We like to experiment and figure these things out as we go. All right, so I just thought I'd come on live and share those tips with you. I hope you enjoyed that today. Thank you so much for your comments. I'll go back and have a look there. If there's any questions, let me know down below. If you're watching the replay, please let me know if you have any questions on using Artisan's Salt Impasto to create that fun wash look, or on using their chalk paint to create this gorgeous glazed look. So there you go. That's that's all I've got for today, but I hope to see you sometime next week as well. I should do some more lives on my page a little bit more often. And don't forget, you can follow me at I Restore Stuff on all of my socials. Check out my YouTube channel there too. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.